Hello, everyone. I am Thirteene, and tonight I'm being joined by DrunkMagic. You want to say hi, DrunkMagic?
Hello, free world. How's it going?
It's going all right. Honestly, I could probably make an argument that something went awry today because I just thought to myself, let's lock somebody out with Enchantment Prison, and that's my mood right now.
Good. I'm excited to see how it develops because I know little to nothing about this deck.
Yep. So this is an insanely fringe deck, like maybe even just tier four. Like it's in the back of people's minds. This is going to be a different version than most people are aware of. I'm actually going to pull up Scryfall really quick. But this is a Esper build where we go find Esper enchantments to lock people out. People are a lot more familiar with the Zur the Enchanter commander deck, and they know how painful it is to play against it. But yeah, so let's pull this up. The version that most people are aware of is Enduring Ideal. So this is actually a really unique card. You get to search your library for an enchantment, then put it into play and shuffle your library. And then it has the keyword epic. And what this does is it's kind of like a storm trigger. It's going to happen as you cast a spell. And for the rest of the game, you can't play any more spells. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you recast this. So you cast it once for 7 mana. You're done casting. But at the beginning of every upkeep, you're going to go and get an enchantment and put it into play. So there's a couple of different lock pieces here, but Form of the Dragon is probably the more common one people are familiar with. So it'll automatically set your life total to 5, and you get to shoot something for 5 every turn, and creatures without flying can't attack. So you become a dragon, you start shooting fire at people, and yeah, that's what you do. You become a dragon.
It's nice to be a dragon. I think that would be a fun way to live. But yeah.
It'd be nice to be able to breathe fire, I think is going to be the bottom line there. But so coming back to our deck, we're actually taking that package out, but that's the one that most people would probably recognize here. We're going to be going for a slower, grindier build, and we're also not going to be running the lower budget that the previous deck had. I know that deck actually has a lot of entry into Magic Online to buy into pretty cheap, but I ended up putting fetch lands in despite our suppression fields. There's a bunch of nombos, but we're just going to try to have some fun with this. So, onto our core cards. Number 1 is Zur the Enchanter. And again, my Scryfall images don't come in great. I probably need to figure out how to resize this or just get better images. But Zur is 4 mana for a 1/4 flyer. Whenever he attacks, you get to search your library for an enchantment with converted mana cost 3 or less and put it into the battlefield and then shuffle your library. So if Zur attacks, he's going to go grab whatever enchantment is most relevant at the time. Then, assuming we make it into late game, we're going to get Sigil of the Empty Throne. It's 5 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment, it comes stapled on with a 4/4 angel token. So this is one of my favorite smaller cards. I have an Angel EDH deck I just absolutely love playing, and this is going to make all of our cheap enchantments basically beaters on top of that. And then we're running Teferi. I assume you're familiar with him. He was in my last video. He does strong things. Also, a couple of issues with other cards in our deck, but he's just going to be strong and help us get where we need to be going. So, to make it to that late game, we've got a couple of cards here. Number 1 is Ensnaring Bridge. This one is a little bit against the game plan of our deck. When we win, we're probably going to be winning with 4/4 Angel tokens, which means it's going to be slow. We're going to end up running out Ensnaring Bridge early, make it so creatures can't attack us, and then we're going to have to get 4 cards in hand to be able to attack with our massive Angel army. But the general concept is we don't want to get attacked. Ghostly Prison's going to make it so you have to pay 2 to attack us for each creature. Sphere of Safety is X, where that's the number of enchantments we control. Kind of going back to the deck tech, everything in here is essentially removal or an enchantment or an ensnaring bridge. So it's going to be a little slow and grindy, so know that going in. And then finally, we are Toolbox deck. Zur can get anything with converted mana cost 3 or less, so if he gets to attack, we can go get Solemnity Lock, we can go get rid of their Ascanta that's keeping them in the game, we can get Suppression Field to make sure that we're taxing their mana if they have Planeswalkers. Like, we just have a ton of different things here, and a lot of these don't work well together. Like I said, Suppression Field with Fetch Lands cost 2 mana. We're running Fetch Lands. That's part of what makes this a budget in the other version of the deck. But, yeah, we just want to lock some people out. So, DrunkMagic, you got any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how you use the toolbox to mess with them, honestly.
Yeah, it's going to be slow, grindy, and I appreciate you hopping on so that we can fill a little bit of the gap. I'm assuming, per usual with prison decks, our opponents are going to be a little slow to pick up and pick up their cards. But let's see what we can do here.
No, yeah, I expect them to. I expect them to get really pissy and take a long time to do their turn, but we can be laughing in the meantime. So yeah.
Exactly. Plus, I'm probably going to have to remove the overlay in the chat from Twitch here because opponents are going to start saying some really salty things. And looking at this opening hand, so we have Leyline of Sanctity. We get to start with it on the battlefield, and we have Hexproof, so we can't get hit with Bolt or Discard. Creatures won't be able to attack. Creatures won't be able to attack, and then remove a permanent from the field. So we're going to keep that. That all looks good.
Seems good. Yep.
So opponents tanking here. It might just be that they had looked away for a moment, but a lot of decks like Ad Nauseam Tendrils can't do anything about Leyline. Burn has a really hard time with it because probably about 60% of their deck can't target us. I've actually seen a lot of concessions to turn 1 Leylines. Just make sure that you don't show your opponent what you're on, but you can't win through it anyway, so you just go straight to the sideboard hate. Yeah, the fact that opponent passed through turn, yep, they're on Valakut. So they can't target us with Valakut triggers, so they're basically screwed here.
What is Valakut? Oh, that's okay. You don't. I guess you don't have to show them.
Opponent's moving slow anyway. Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, is one of the Zendikar lands. Note it is not legendary. Whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains, you may have Valakut deal 3 damage to any target creature or player. So their deck...
Yeah, they should have conceded.
They should have conceded because they end up casting Scapeshift, sacrifice their lands, go get a bunch of Valakuts and mountains, and shoot 3 damage to your face repeatedly. So... Sorry, opponent, I thought I passed to your turn. But they're not going to be able to target us in the face. They also run Primeval Titan to go get lands and ramp up. And so they're expecting if they're going to beat us, they're going to beat us with attacking with creatures. And opponent doesn't know it, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, next turn you get to play out in Snaring Bridge, yeah.
I actually am probably going to slow roll this a little bit and make sure that I can take their Kalani Heart expedition so that they have to... This makes it so that they can ramp up pretty fast. I don't want them to do that. Nevermore is another one of our toolbox cards. It's similar to Meddling Mage. We name a card and that card can't be cast. Banishing Light exiles something underneath it until it leaves play. We're taking the Heart expedition. So they use a bunch of other cards that will go and get them lands. Essentially what they want to do is have their opponent go to 18 like we did off of fetch lands or just damaging themselves in any way. Then they cast Scapeshift, sacrifice 6 lands, go get 5 mountains and a Valakut. All 5 mountains see each other enter. It ends up doing 18 damage to the opponent with 6 lands. Or if they get up to 7, they can get 2 Valakuts and make it like 24 damage. I'm terrible with Valakut math. But essentially they need a way to get this off to the table or kill us with creatures, and we're not going to let them kill us with creatures.
Valakut math's not our goal. We're all about squirrel math.
Squirrel math is fantastic. Alright, so I kind of just want a Ghostly Prison here and see if they scoop. The Ensnaring Bridge they can still attack in through anyway, and now they're just going to start feeling the pressure of not being able to attack us unless they don't do anything else for turn. For any of the viewers that aren't aware, Squirrel Math is a fun little exercise we made while trying to figure out how Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, Deranged Hermit, Bramble Sovern...
Squirrel Nest, right?
Deranged Hermit gives you 4 squirrels, but then Doubling Season will make it 8, and then Primal Vigor will make it 16. Bramble Silvering will give you a copy, but because of the copies that are giving you additional copies of tokens, you'll end up getting like 6 more copies of Deranged Hermit. Essentially, it's how many tokens can you get off a Deranged Hermit?
All of the squirrels.
Just all of the squirrels. Alright, so Nykthos is our wonderful little mana source here that gives us mana equal to our devotion if we put 2 mana into it. So devotion is the number of CMCs in the mana cost. So Leyline has 2 white in it, Banishing Light has 1 white, Ghostly Prison has 1 white. This would give us 4 mana. We kind of don't care about that yet. I just want to make sure opponent knows that they are going to be losing here if they don't pick up. In all honesty, I could have ran out Nevermore, gotten 6 mana off of Nykthos, and played out the Ensnaring Bridge, but it's fine. This Courser is letting us see the top of their deck. That's the only way they'll have any outs. We can name it with Nevermore. Yep, there's the Primeval Titan, so that's going to go get 2 lands. In this case, they're probably getting 2 Valakuts. Yep. So Valakut is now on the battlefield, and basically Primeval Titan won't be able to attack, but any future mountains that they draw are going to be able to do 6 damage to any target.
I can't believe you know all this.
Yeah, opponent forgot that they have to pay to attack. Alright, so Suppression's Field is funny. Again, this deck isn't constructed overly well. Now Valakut's going to cost 4 mana to give us right now 4 mana, so that's actually costing us a mana, but now they can't attack with anything. And activating fetch lands or the Kalani Expedition, this guy, it's all going to cost 2 mana. And now Courser can't get in either. So what we're looking for now is our good friend... Zer's not going to survive. It looks like I'm going to have to actually pull it up here. Alright, so opponent casts Summoner's Pact. It's free. They get to search for a green creature and put it into their hand. The only card they might have here is Reclamation Sage. Oh, they got another Courser. Our opponent has no idea what's going on. But because this card is free, at the beginning of the next upkeep, you have to pay the mana cost or you lose the game. So right now they're trying to make sure they don't lose the game.
I mean, there's always the case that the opponent wants to see what your end game is. In Arena, I do that, a lot. When there's a deck that I'm kind of interested in, I'll let them play it out just so I can see it.
Yeah, and I know I've mentioned it before, but I feel like Arena is MTG light. So I just removed the sided bar here. I can actually talk to my opponent here, and most of the time, people you're playing with against are pretty nice. They're willing to save time on the clock and be like, what's your win condition? Like, tell me what I need to sideboard for, and we'll be fine. But opponents only got 1 piece of enchantment and or artifact hate in their sideboard, and that's Reclamation Sage, and they're not taking advantage of that. So... Ooh, we don't even have our blue yet. Did I not put blue in this deck?
I'll look at the list.
We have a single island, glacial fortresses, flooded strands, drowned catacombs. Yeah, we have plenty of blue sources. Alright, well... I'm just going to Nevermore here so that they can't continue to attack in. And I believe I'm just going to call Reclamation Sage, because that's the card most likely in their board somewhere. They actually would have gotten it with Summoner's Pact. Yeah, so that was a misfire. With the Marsh Flats, I should have gotten a Hollowed Fountain.
We learn as we go.
That is one of the fallbacks of playing a different deck every week is like you need to know the intricacies of your deck, and half the time it's just like, I want to play that card.
For sure, for sure. I'm done with my first martini of the night, so I'm gonna have to wait till after this game to get another.
I need to put this up. Feel free to go ahead and go check. Opponents definitely tanking on what they want to do here. I've minimized our game and done a couple of things, and we're still up on clock by almost 2 minutes, so...
Seems good. Martini break?
Yep, so one of the things that opponent can get with Summoner's Pact, I ended up naming it, was Reclamation Sage. Okay, I am apparently terrible at typing this out. Here it is. Enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So if they do end up under an ensnaring bridge or something along those lines, they can just use the Summoner's Pact. And Path to Exile is pretty good coverage in case, for whatever reason, they can blow up the ensnaring bridge.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So opponent ran out Courser, and that was it. We drew Path to Exile.
You planning on pathing the Titan, or?
I don't care. Oh, actually, that is a very good point. I'll path it on upkeep so that the coursers can attack in. Thank you for catching that.
Yes, because that was absolutely my plan. I didn't remember that 2 cards in hand meant they could attack.
Alright, so they went and got a mountain. So you can see from the triggers, they're going to gain life off the courser, and they can shoot anything for 9 damage since they have 3 Valakuts out. They can't target us, so this should be optional. Yeah, you may have Valakut. So they are going to have to opt into no targets for Valakut. And this is when opponent really should start considering scooping. I know that it's a skill a lot of newer players don't develop very quickly, is when to scoop, but when you are so far behind and you don't know what your out is, it does need to come up. Again, I mentioned in the other prison video, you can't really fault them. We're playing a slow deck. It's perfectly okay for them to play it out, especially if they believe they have an out. It's just a little hard to not know that you're falling behind on clock with no board state. Like, the way it's going, our opponent actually might time out before we even get to our win condition. Okay, there we go. Alright, so they are on Valakut. Leyline of Sanctity obviously was an all-star. Ixalan's Binding, for those of you not playing Standard, is pretty similar to our Banishing Light that we cast previously, but it costs 1 more, and then that card can't be cast again. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a more permanent solution. Oromancy here, we already have one in the deck over here. This will give all of our other enchantments Shroud. So we can make it so that if they do have a Reclamation Sage, they have to target this first, just falling further behind. Sanctimony is funny. Whenever an opponent taps a mountain for mana, you may gain 1 life. They have a lot of mountains because Valakut cares about the number of mountains, but if they can end up hitting us, they're going to be able to hit us for a lot through Escape Shift. Like, Valakut math starts at 18 and it ends at like 40 something very quickly, like just off of 3 or 4 more lands. So not overly concerned about that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious. I actually don't remember. Does Ixalan's Binding let you target like something like Valakut?
It will not hit a land.
Oh, okay.
But if we snag a Primeval Titan, they won't be able to cast another one. So Spreading Seas is also really good in this matchup. It's an aura for a land. It turns it into an island, and then we draw a card. So we can actually turn Valakut into an island. But Fatal Push is coming out. It can't hit anything that we care about in this matchup. Path to Exile is always incredibly awkward when they care about the number of lands that they have, and they're probably just going to sacrifice them and go get more mountains. Or if they already have an active Valakut, if we path, they get a lightning bolt out of hitting their land drop. I don't like this, but we do need to be able to answer their Titan, so some number of these is probably going to be fine. I'm probably looking at Seal Away first because Primeval Titan triggers on enter the battlefield and attack. By the time it attacks, it'll be tapped and they'll go get more lands, which are probably lethal.
So, curious, we're running 4 ley lines, right?
Now we are. There were 2 main, 2 side.
So, multi-ley line, or is that the plan we're on? Because I feel like if opponent sees it again, they might scoop because they realize it now.
Yeah. I'm also going to cut a Supreme Verdict. We're running a little bit low on time. They're not going to counter us, and board clears aren't going to do a ton. As far as Leyline, they have sideboard hate. They probably have either Destructive Revelries or Reclamation Sages or something in the sideboard for us.
Got it.
Although we're going to Greater Oromancy now before they can destroy it with Rex Sage, so we're going to have them locked out. They'll be able to attack, but they shouldn't be able to kill Zur very quickly.
Yeah, that's a nasty hand. This is playing kind of fun.
Again, so prison decks, I didn't say it this video, but prison decks are very fun for the person playing them. If you are looking into buying into this deck, you have to understand you're going to be labeled as the prison player, especially if you go to F&M for like social reasons. You do quickly become the person that it's like people don't necessarily want to sit down and play with you. So it is something to keep in mind. I do really love the deck though.
Yeah, that's why you banned Stasis in our friendly Commander matches.
Yes, Commander especially is supposed to be a fun, casual format. It's a social format. Cards like Stasis don't really make it a ton of fun. When you're in competitive, it 100% makes sense to play to your outs. And if Prison is going to be how you win, Prison is going to be how you win. This list is... You don't want to do this list. Freewind Red is probably better than Tezzeret, which is significantly better than anything we're doing here. So... some stuff to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, Stasis and Smokestack is fun from, as you said, the Stacks player themselves. So
correct. So addressing some of the cards on the table. So now we are currently hexproof. Greater Oromancy is giving Leyline hexproof. We drew Thassa, which is one of the Theros gods. She is an enchantment. At the beginning of our upkeep, we can scry and we can make a creature unblockable. The creature unblockable isn't irrelevant, but it's not going to come up often. And then we did draw our win condition in Sigil of the Empty Throne, where whenever we cast an enchantment, we get an angel. So we won't be targeted by Valakut anytime soon. They need to have 2 enchantment removals to get through us. And Ghostly Prison or something similar would be awesome. Alright, well, they'll still be able to attack in, so I think I'm going to lead on Thassa here. I really want to be able to scry into the 4th land, especially if they try to go for another creature, and our Supreme Verdict gets more text box. This package from the opponent is very common post-sideboard. The Tireless Tracker can be a threat on its own. It also helps match... card advantage matchups like Control. It also helps them to draw into answers in the Prison matchup like we're currently in now. This is just going to allow them to see a lot more cards than us. Ooh, opponent's going deep. If they have a fetch land, yep. We're falling pretty far behind here.
Well, I don't understand why this is big for them.
So, Colony Heart Expedition has landfall. Whenever a land enters under your control, you can put a quest counter on it. When it has 3 quest counters, you can sacrifice it to go get 2 basic lands and put them into play. They just ran out 2 of them with a fetch land that's going to trigger landfall twice. They didn't want to bring back the keyword landfall, but Tireless Tracker has landfall get a clue. So they're going to get 2 clues, get 2 quest counters on this thing, and then if they can crack this before we can kill it, then they're going to get 4 more clues.
Yeah, but the follow up to that, you got Ensnaring Bridge in hand. They need to have enchantment or artifact removal because Tireless Tracker is going to be, dumb big from all the clue sacking they have going on. They won't be able to attack in no matter what.
Right, but they're going to be drawing a lot of cards, so if they do have anything that can deal with our enchantments, it's not impossible to think that they have Back to Nature.
Gotcha. How many?
That just
Yeah,
destroys
that's
all
destroy
enchantments.
Yeah, I remember that one. Not artifacts though. That would leave Ensnaring Bridge out there.
It would,
I
but
didn't.
like, so the argument for fetch lands thinning decks is when you're looking at turn one and you've looked at 8 cards, assuming you're on the draw, paying 1 life to reduce the margin from 52 to 51 isn't significant. But when they're removing 4 lands out of 46 out of their deck, that's essentially 10%. So they're going to be thinning their deck. Yep, and there's the Rex Age. So Greater Oromancy's going away.
Interesting. Yeah. So how many Ixalan bindings are you running?
I have a single Ixalan's Binding. And
One.
Zur, unfortunately, only tutors 3 or less. I actually really want to put out Zur here and try to grab the other Greater Oromancy. Or Ixalan's Binding. Garrett, you're a pro at this game.
Bam! There we go. I think that means I get a third martini when this is done.
I believe it does. You have earned that martini, sir.
Sweet.
So opponent's trying to figure out what that means. He must only have 1 Reclamation Sage. So, of note, if he does have something like a Destructive Revelry or another way to destroy enchantments, if he blows up Ixalan's Binding, Reclamation Sage comes back in and destroys another thing. But I believe the upside here is high enough because they run a lot of Reclamation Sages because they can tutor it out with the Summoner's Pact.
That's a chance you gotta take, right?
It is. Like, the one issue here being, like, if I follow this up with Ensnaring Bridge next turn and they immediately blow this up, then get my ley line, I'm dead. But we also learned something for game 3. Plus, like I said, Zur, he's going to come down next turn, more than likely, and attack in and grab our Greater Oromancy. Then, if they do have something to destroy an artifact or enchantment, they have to target Greater Oromancy and then Ixalan's Binding and then Leyline of Sanctity. So we have a couple of outs. Yep.
Yeah, or at least a couple turns to draw out of it. Or what is that? Oh shit. Yeah.
Yep. So, go ahead.
No, what do you got? Because I'm thinking you play Zur out as a blocker, Primeval Titan that's like bound to come in, or I guess another Tireless Tracker.
We are basically at this point looking for another Leyline or we die.
That's fancy right there. Fancy words.
So Thassa is going to help us scry, but that's only going to do so much. We can put out Ensnaring Bridge, but every single land drop they make, I guess they only have 1 card in hand, so we have a turn or 2, but every single land drop that they make is going to be 3 damage. And most of their deck is Farseek, go get a land, Kalani Heart Expedition, go get 2 lands, Steve, go get a land, Search for Tomorrow, get a land.
Well, 3 out of 40, so you got like a 10% chance of drawing another Leyline. A little bit less than a 10% chance. Detention Sphere? Is that target a land?
No. No, this only hits... So what I actually really want to do here is run out Zur, and I'm probably going to Spreading Seas their Valakut.
It doesn't have haste, does it?
No, but when I attack next turn, I get to go get a enchantment and put it directly into the battlefield.
Gotcha.
If they go get 2 mountains here, then Zur's down. But if they do, then we can just run out Ensnaring Bridge and get a couple of good laughs out of it.
Or they get Valakut. Yeah, that's what... Yeah, okay. They got a couple more of those. So next turn they got a land in hand and they play it, and then we're dead unless we draw a Leyline. Yeah.
Okay, so Summoner's Pact here gets another Primetime. They play Primetime. They get 2 mountains, and that's 6 times 3 for 18 damage. We're dead.
I like to see the math.
All right,
I,
so what does this change? I don't believe it changes anything.
I'm gonna go get more Chex Mix and refill my martini.
Okay.
One sec. Yep.
All right, so we have Leyline here, Greater Oromancy, Interaction. This is fine. The fact that they have Rex Stages and Destructive Revelries is going to make this kind of a hard matchup. I know a lot of decks can't do a whole lot about enchantments, which is why this deck actually has some power to it. Leading on Flooded Strand here, we're going to need to get a black source and don't mind having Path up. I don't believe they have anything I actually want to Path, but it's not bad sequencing since we're not going to be taking the shock anyway. Alright, the other weird piece of interaction with this deck, Luminarch Ascension. It's a 2-mana enchantment. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if I didn't lose life that turn, I can put a quest counter on it. It's actually the white version of their Kalani Heart Expedition. When it has 4 more counters, I can pay 2 mana to get a 4/4 Angel token. And this is going to be how we combat a lot of what they're doing. Suppression Field is here, though, in case they have a fetch land. That'll slow them down by at least a full turn. It does make our Luminarch Ascension cost 4, but if we end up getting behind our Prison Lock, it really doesn't matter. 4 mana is not that much. I probably should have left up Path to Exile because this could be a Tireless Tracker into a land here. But cracking their clues is going to be 4 mana with Suppression Field out, so it's not going to be nearly as bad as it was last game.
I don't feel like I was gone long enough for you to be this far into this game.
Opponent actually picked up their play speed.
I had to get a Haichu too, so yeah.
Alright, so I'm going to run out Luminarch Ascension here, and I'm actually just going to Path Rexage. I'm not going to run it back to the point that they can... The upside from Ixalan's Binding locking them out of future Rexages felt high enough, but for now, I'm just going to Path this. Although, I'm waiting until upkeep, so it'll be untapped. Otherwise, they could just slam a land and drop a Primetime. So, DrunkMagic. Turns out, Luminarch Ascension costs 4 with Suppression Field out, making our deck even worse.
Well, yeah, that's something I didn't notice.
Yeah, again, this deck wasn't constructed super well, but especially if we see like a Solemnity here. And missing that land drop was quite painful. Getting Zur here actually probably could have ended the game. Yep, there's Mr. Primetime.
Land off the top, Binding. Huh?
Yep, that's the dream. If not, Detention Sphere is still going to do it. They don't have any enchantment hate, or they would have cast it by now. Alright, so Primetime cannot attack, otherwise we pretty much just lose. So, gonna go ahead and Detention Sphere it. Detention Sphere is pretty similar to the other ones, but for the low cost of adding blue to your deck, we'll also grab everything with the same name as the target.
I just had a thought. If they got Enchantment Hate, blow that up. and get 2 more mountains. That's not enough to kill you. Alright.
Alright, so I can Zur here, or I can Spreading Seas. How close am I to dead if I'm just on Spreading Seas? Zur will make it so Luminarch Ascension goes up. I think that might be higher priority. Steve rarely attacks, but he can. This little guy's nickname is Steve, because Sakura Tribe Elder, like, just jam it all together. It kind of sounds like Steve, I think was the bottom line there. I know the rewards for winning Pro Tours and stuff like that were Bob and Finkel and a lot of the very powerful cards like Solemn Simulacrum, but I think this was just a nickname on him. And they need to make 2 land drops. Oh, never mind. Yep, so Valakut's going to kill Zur here. That was a mistake. I should have Spreading Seas first. So Ascension won't trigger. I forgot Steve actually costs 2 to activate because of Suppression Field.
Weird deck.
Mine or theirs?
Yours.
Oh yeah, this deck is bad. I do not endorse this deck. I'm just playing it. Alright, so definitely starting on Spreading Seas. Ixalan's Binding is on Tireless Tracker doesn't feel good enough. Sigel's an interesting one. Sigil could actually close this game out. So what I did here was I took their land and made it into an island, so this has no special text on it anymore. One of the best ways to combat this deck is if they ever go to Scapeshift and they only get 5 mountains. All 5 mountains do see each other enter, so you get that many triggers. But if you can, like, Field of Ruin or Cryptic Command bounce a mountain, it actually fizzles all of them because the wording says if you have at least 5. So if they only get 5 and you get rid of 1.
So you're thinking Sigil and then Binding on Tracker?
Yeah, and then that's going to give me a 4/4 and they won't have a tracker anymore. They'll have drawn a ton of cards, but they have to get Rexage. If they get Rexage, we just lose. Or Destructive Revelry, I guess. They are going deep. Alright, I think I have a single turn before I care about the Ensnaring Bridge. But I can't bridge and Ixalan's Binding, so whatever they drew into this turn.
I mean, I think I'm still on Sigil plan. Because if you're going to die, you're going to die.
Yeah, I have at least one more turn if I do either. If I don't do either one of these. So this will at least get me a clock in the air. Again, as I mentioned in the deck tech, we can't attack in with Sigil Angels with Ensnaring Bridge out unless we have 4 cards. But if we do get a little bit of a clock out there, then that means that opponent actually has to start Valakutting our Angel tokens.
It can put you to 1, right? Or no?
They can hit for 8 right now. If they hit a fetch land and crack it twice, they can put me to 1.
Okay.
And Destructive Revelry will actually hit me, so we would die if that's the case. Yeah, this tracker did some work. What happened to my Path to Exile? Did it hit the... Oh, yeah, the Rexage. This may have been enough of an argument to actually leave Fatal Push in the deck. I don't believe it is, but...
You're betting on a fetch land at that point.
Alright, Path to Exile is quite funny there. So... Ixalan's Binding will get me a 4/4, stop the tracker shenanigans. They have to be on Rexage. And A land? Unfortunately, this just added up way too much. They have 5 cards in hand, and I've seen half their deck.
One Rex Sage does it, right?
Pretty much. 1 Rex Sage and a land. Primeval Titan's also thinning their deck, but yeah, I like it all those valid cuts. We only have 2 spreading seas in the deck. We've already used 1.
You're gonna path it though, right? I mean,
I am. I'm going to path it before they can do anything to destroy our ley line. So they'll get a landfall trigger here. I honestly don't think they have any more basics to go get. If they did, they opted out of it because they at least need 1 to hit us with. And like I said, it was smart of them to finally concede when they did because they are falling very far behind on clock. Unfortunately, he can still attack in. And this doesn't even generate an angel, so we can't force him to use land drops to ping it. Death by Steve. Alright, well, I guess he brought in a Braids too. Must be why it's taking him so long to actually find anything of impact. He probably watered down his deck a ton for sideboard answers.
that card draw. Opponent must be dying because they probably have like a good amount of answers to you.
Well, I think they just got really lucky game 2 because I assume they have probably 2 Rex Sages, and if they're on Revelry, they probably have 2 of those. I think most lists just run like 3 Rex Sages because you can tutor for them. Yeah, but a Braid only hits the Ensnaring Bridge. Like, it doesn't even kill Zur. Oh, there it is.
Can they cast it this turn?
No, they would have to draw another card.
What are we looking for to draw out of this?
Probably the other Greater Oromancy. Or Nevermore. Oh, Nevermore wouldn't do it. We need a mana. Ah! Alright, so,
That's hilarious.
oh, we can block with the Angel! They have to make a land drop! Alright, opponent, show me the land drop! Oh, there it is. Alright, GG's. That was pretty good.
I can't believe you drew it.
Greater Oromancy definitely would... Oh, no, Greater Oromancy still would have hit us for the 3 damage because they could still target Greater Oromancy. So it destroys target artifact or enchantment and deals 2 damage to the permanent's controller. It actually doesn't target us, it's the permanent's controller. So it would have hit us for 2 and we were at 1. I am so bad at updating my match record. currently 0-1 versus Valakut. So, DrunkMagic, it sounds like you haven't had too much experience with Valakut. As a primarily blue-white player, I absolutely hate the Valakut matchup. You have to be on the 4 Field of Ruins to even kind of have a shot at that. They just get so much ability to ping you for 3 to death that your spells don't interact in a meaningful way. It's very hard matchup. Like, the deck's kind of linear. My personal opinion is it gets a little boring to play because you always take the same lines, but it has a lot of ability to say you're going to die.
Yeah, well, I think your deck did fine against it. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's like how much fun are you having playing your deck? The fact that you drew Nevermore at the end of that and you were a mana off it, hilarious.
It was. Because if I could have emptied my hand, it meant that we couldn't have been killed by Steve. All right, so hard scales.
You want Solemnity. I've played against Hardened Scales with Solemnity. It's hilarious.
I do want Solemnity. In fact, I'm going to be fetching here to, again, fetch lands are not statistically relevant when you're at full life, but I'm going to be cracking these as soon as possible to reduce the chance. I have a single one in the deck, and they cannot interact with my board, which means Zur is Solemnity.
It was hilarious. I think it was it might have been a month and a half ago that I was at F&M and I was playing Black-White Aristocrats, dropped a Solemnity against Hardened Scales, and the guy was just like, I don't even know how I combat that. Like, it's funny.
Yeah, you're also one of the few decks in Modern that runs it main board. Ooh.
4 copies helps.
Yes, it does. When your combo is a very good hate piece against the opponent, it's usually a pretty good strategy. Alright, so I'm going to take the Hardened Scales here. It just enables so much of their game plan, and if they follow it up with a Arcbound Ravager, I haven't actually sat down and done the math, but I'm pretty sure that they can make this a 4/4, sack it, end up getting 5 counters on top of it, move it over. Like, we might be dead, so I'm just going to grab this, and this Seal Away is looking pretty good, and the Spreading Seas can grab their Infect creature, so we can control the board.
Yeah, Blink Moth Nexus, isn't that what it is?
This is Ink Moth. It's actually the Infect creature. This is Blink Moth. It's the normal damage one.
Yeah. I definitely need that another martini.
Alright, so let's see what opponent's on. They got another one! This is when Ixalan's Binding is a little better than Detention Sphere. Because that had to have been a top deck for them.
So I'm curious. Oh yeah, you drew land. Alright, so Spreading Seas and then Seal Away?
Yep, that's the plan. This will hopefully get me a 5th land so I can sigil and then start dropping angels.
Modular doesn't trigger if it is exile, correct?
Correct. And then if they do happen to blow this away, which I don't believe they can main board, the Hangerback Walker will come back as a 0/0 and just die to state-based actions. So this is permanent removal on the Hangerback.
So they probably run Rex Sages in the sideboard, though, yeah?
I believe they're actually on Nature's Claim. Yeah, if I can type it all.
Yeah, just pop one, though, yeah.
1 mana, pop, artifact or enchantment, its controller gains 4 life. When they can grind you into the ground, or they can come out with a 1/1 infect creature, or just something along those lines, and they can end the game pretty quickly. So having 4 life, either long game or short game, doesn't affect them a lot. Like this guy right here is super annoying.
Ooh, nice animation module.
Yeah, this has become pretty standard tech for them. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are placed on a permanent you control, you may pay 1. If you do, you get a servo. And then you can pay 3 to put another counter of any kind on a permanent or a player. So they've also started running the Graph Land. Basically, it's shenanigans to put 1/1 counters on every new creature if you have mana for it.
Yeah, weird side thing. That would be a nightmare against my Hammer deck in Legacy.
Alright, so I have a lot of ways to tax their mana here. Thos is not going to do anything. Banishing Light is probably my play. And from what I can tell, they only have 2 cards in hand. I'm not sure if I want to go after their best synergy, their best enabler, or their only threat.
Well, I mean, they play like Burn, don't they? So when they run out of cards in hand, they have to concede because they can't keep up. There's no card draw on the deck.
Well, they can just start adding counters to this, and every counter from the animation module is going to end up being 2 counters because of the hardened scales.
Okay.
I think I'm going after their biggest enabler because they can't activate it right now, which means I only have to stare down this 2/2, and I have Oblivion Ring, more detention spheres, I have ensnaring bridges, like ghostly prisons. I think I can slow them down, and my life total's high enough that I'm kind of okay. Plus, I have 4 Path to Exiles, which will just exile and get rid of the modular trigger unless they get an Arcbound.
I hate Stirrings. Such a silly card.
We went to go do a draft for Ravnica weekend, and a guy was asking me about my opinions on what to ban, and we ended up getting in like an hour and a half long conversation about what Ancient Stearns does that it's not supposed to. It just, you see more cards than in blue. Yes, it only gets something colorless, but that card selection is reserved for blue for a reason. It's just so off color, and it's beyond the power level of anything else in Modern. I don't like this card in Modern.
I mean, I'm not one to like be a point of, I don't know, a point of reference for, but I would agree. I really hate that card. Even in the FNM Modern tournaments I played against, I see that come down. I know I'm gonna probably die that turn. But yeah.
So Walking Ballista here just gives a lot of reach I don't want them to have. They didn't even activate it? Okay. Again, this is a permanent kill spell. If they do happen to have a way to get rid of this, this would have come back as a 2/2. They found another Blink Moth, but they haven't played it out. Okay, there it is. So this can be attacking as a 2/2. We're on a 3-turn clock.
Are you on the Sigil plan at this point?
Probably. I mean, I need mana for it. So I'm probably on Thassa here, and then scry into a better answer. We have 2 turns, which means we can draw a land and an ensnaring bridge, although we'll still die to these things. Zur next turn could block and attack in, and basically end the game.
I don't know, man. I feel like kind of dead at this point.
Zur being able to block is going to buy us an additional turn. We'll go to 1. Okay, I forgot about that. Yep. So we still... The lands are hard. It makes the board clears less good. So Ensnaring Bridge isn't going to cut it. Ghostly Prison might. No, it wouldn't. Suppression Field. Still going to get hit with the 2/2. Teferi we can't cast. Alright. GG's opponent. Suppression Field, going to be an all-star here. Stony Silence is going to be the banhammer.
Alright, going to grab a martini. It's that time.
Alright. Ixalan's Binding is interesting. Unfortunately, they can remove a lot of their creatures with Arcbound Ravager and Throne of Geth. So that loses a lot of value. I'm probably not going to run that 4 mana, just have your target get sacrificed and have no effect is... I didn't mean to put that in. Where'd that go? Just doesn't feel strong enough. I'm so confused. There's 11 cards in sideboard, 63 in main deck. Where did that Ixalan's Binding go? Okay. Leyline of the Void, the only interesting interaction here is the creatures don't die, which means that you don't get Arcbound Ravager modular triggers, you don't get Arcbound Worker triggers, you don't get Hangerback triggers. I don't believe this is good enough to bring in, but we're going to look at what we have to take out. Leyline of Sanctity, they would only target us with Walking Ballista. Oh, that's why they didn't ping anything. They couldn't target us. Ghostly Prison is going to tax their mana base. They're very low to the ground. Affinity was basically relying on Mox Opals to get anything done. Solemnity, as DrunkMagic said, is just a hoser. I like all of the board clears. Wrath of God can probably come in. They can typically Welding Jar a threat and keep it alive and then put all the triggers on something. Spreading Seas is a little iffy, but right now it's one of the better options. The Greater Oromancy can probably come in. I know they have a lot of sideboard hate. So that's decent number of cuts. Probably just a Sigil because it's slow. Sphere's fantastic. Thassa doesn't do much on her own, and Copy Enchantment requires something already good.
But side note though, I swear I got the best bag of high chews ever. It's all green and gray and purple. It's amazing. Sorry, martinis are getting kind of deep.
The strawberries are the best, though.
They're better than the mango. Mango are the worst in my opinion. I know.
So I don't actually think I want to keep this hand. Stony Silence is probably the best thing that we have here, and we don't have a third mana for Ensnaring Bridge. I really like how low our CMC is, but that's kind of just how we boarded. And this has a lot of what we're looking for. We can turn one path if they end up leading on something good. And then we have untapped mana and interaction and our Silver Bullet. Ooh, we don't have 2 white sources, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to bottom that. Opponent mulliganed to 6 as well, and they left a card on top. So I'm actually expecting a turn 1 Hardened Scales, so we're not actually going to leave this path up. This seems like a better turn 3 play. We can Journey if they actually do have a threat that we have to care about, but if it's just a Hangerback Walker or a Walking Ballista, then yep, don't really care about much of that. Happy to see Zur. They shouldn't be able to kill him very easily unless it's a Walking Ballista, so that all seems good. Journey to Nowhere is pretty similar to a lot of our other exile clauses on enchantments, but it costs 2 and only hits a creature. I kind of just want to run this out. Stony Silence might be better, but we'll see how their threat density is. If they actually do have sideboard hate for enchantments, they'll use it here. Alright, so we got our mana for Zur, which is fantastic. I kind of want to Stony Silence here and force them to have the removal. It'd be nice if we could hold up Path to Exile as well, but the lacking white is kind of bad. Most of our deck is white. I don't know, we probably are a little skewed in what we're doing. Mox Opal doesn't do anything, both because they don't have Metalcraft, and because we have Stony Silence.
You have plenty of sources for white.
Alright, and it's probably correct to leave Path to Exile up here, but we got Zur. I'm going to run out Zur. So if they attack in, how does this go wrong? They can pump with Pendlehaven, put out a Hardened Scales, drop a Walking Ballista, Nature's Claim. It's very possible for them to kill Zur, so I'm probably not blocking for this turn just in case. They only have 2 cards in hand, but if that is Hardened Scales and Walking Ballista, it's possible. Alright, so they have nothing. So what do we want with Zur? So this is the power of the deck. When we attack, we get to pick any of these. It's probably just Solemnity, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. They scoop. That'd be amazing. They have to have removal for it.
Yeah, they're going to have to scoop here. Because we have Stony Silence and Solemnity, like, what would they even have? They're going to be playing out vanilla creatures. There's the Hardened Scales. So it is worth noting that the Sacrifice an Artifact is being blocked by Stony Silence, but the modular is when it dies, it moves. So if they end up, if we kill the Ravager by blocking or something along those lines, they can move the counters over and still Overseer will become a 3/3.
I don't think that's how it works. I think if you try to move it, they can't gain any counters of that kind.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's because of the Solemnity. I was just thinking in terms of the Stony Silence.
Yeah, they're like hard locked.
They are pretty hard locked here. And we got the Spreading Seas. So Ensnaring Bridge does affect both sides of the board. Zur is only a 1-power creature, so we still get a swing in. And then I kind of just want to get their creature here. It might be correct to do something. Actually, I think it's Oromancy. They're hard locked. We may as well make it harder.
I thought you were going to do Detention Sphere. Yeah. I mean, I guess you're high enough life total, it doesn't really matter.
Opponent F6 through their first main phase, and that's the Shame Scoop. So, of note, the cards that we pulled out, Copy Enchantment will become a copy of anything on the battlefield. If Zur's active, this is fantastic, but as I'm sure you saw in the previous game, it's not very easy to keep him on the field. Thassa is 3 mana, allows you to scry, and you can also attack with Zur, go get her, and then pay 2 mana to make Zur unblockable if you're attacking into blockers. I think this is fine the way it is, though. We have a bunch of low-level interaction. We have specific hate. This should be the matchup where our deck does well.
Come on, come on, come on. Opening hand Solemnity. I'm asking for it. I will chug my martini. Probably not a really good idea as of...
Yeah, you don't need to do that. It sounds like you're a couple in.
Hey, it's every night, bro. It's good.
There is a reason we call you DrunkMagic.
Yeah. Just gotta make steak and drink more tonight.
Alright, as long as our opponent is tanking, this is what their deck list looks like. They have a bunch of artifacts, all with activated abilities, and most of which require getting counters for Hardened Scales. It looks like, for their sideboard, they typically go with a Spellskite, Pithy Needles, and Nature's Claims. So 4 Nature's Claims are probably in this deck. We have Stony Silence, Solemnity. I'm sorry, opponent. This might not be your night. Yeah, they're mulliganing for that hate. They do not want to get locked again. They're down to 4 and card on top. It's not even colored. So, because we have Suppression Field here, and they mulligan so low, that's probably going to be our first play. I have to get rid of our fetch lands, otherwise it's going to cost 2 to activate, because it's not a mana ability. So you'll pay a life and pay 2 mana to go fetch. It's kind of similar to Leonin Arbiter, but that's more permanent. And we are definitely getting a blue source here. It'd be nice if we could get blue-black, but I don't think I actually put any Watery Graves in this deck, because I'm bad at this game. Wow, yeah, and a single watery grave. So I guess it's white, blue, and I have to path? I'm not happy about that. I guess it's a godless shrine. No blue. But I don't want this to stick around. I don't want any synergy pieces for it. We just need to get rid of that. Then they're clearly looking for sideboard hate and going to run out the suppression field here. Then that way they can't activate the Inkmoth Nexus and any of their synergies are going to be really slowed down. Mox Opal won't get them as far as they need it to. Although that will actually tap for mana. Hi Mox Opal, I was just talking about you.
Land off the top, come on.
We still have plenty to do if we don't get a land, so it's fine. This evolutionary leap's going to cost 3 and they have nothing. Yay, land off the top. Alright, so I think we're on Solemnity. It's going to be sad if this gets hit, but they only have 1 card, so if it's hate, it's hate.
Yeah, I mean, if they got it, they got it. If they don't, then GG's.
And we want to land. Nope. Okay. Well, we're going to make life a little more difficult for them. Now, this is going to cost 4 mana, and this is going to cost 4 mana, and they have 2 mana and 2 cards in hand. Yeah, it's alright, Punny. It doesn't get counters.
I love this deck. I love it.
Is it wrong for me to enjoy this? I think I'm just running this out because clearly they don't have hate, so that's not mana anymore, even if you had 3 artifacts.
No. This is the goal. I mean, enjoying this is the goal.
Oh, yeah, like I said, they went after Solemnity first. Alright. That actually fixed our life total. Thank you for that. Alright, well that's sad. Wait for them to tap this to try to activate this and be super sad.
Wait, are you going to path them?
No, I'm not going to path. I don't want to give them mana at this point. I'm going to Journey.
Got you. The Journey have flash?
No, Journey's sorcery, but like if I run out Zur here, that's fine. If I draw a land, it's Zur. If I don't, it's Journey. This is a vanilla 2/2 at this point, so yeah, that doesn't tap for mana. Or I can't sack that, so Journey it is. And opponent's got nothing going on here, so again, deck, suppression field, fetch lands, non-bow. Cracking this is going to cost 4 mana. We don't have 4 mana. There's a problem.
Kind of funny, but yeah.
So, you asked me how my day was, and I said I must have had something go wrong because this is what I want to do tonight, and this is where we are.
Yeah, you should have some bad days more often.
It wasn't overly bad. Like I had mentioned before, I was actually expecting to record this video. I just needed a little assistance because it's going to be slow when opponent's not drawing anything and still tanking for 15 seconds on their turn. They're going to try to activate Inkmoth. It's not going to work. They see the 4 mana requirement.
You know, I'd find it funny if you joined my arena stream on like haphazard bombardment sometime, because I love playing that.
Dude, just set a date. I'm on the deployment Thursday. I've been trying to stream Sunday night, Monday night, and Wednesday night, but if we're actually recording and putting it on the website, I'll happily skip one of my nights and just send people over to you. You know, the one person in chat who's you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been streaming a lot, but like haven't been recording much because a lot of the time the decks I play just are kind of ad hoc.
Have you not seen the lists I've been running?
Yeah, I feel it. I feel.
Alright, well, our opponent's never getting an attack in. Oh, Bonnet, you shouldn't have done that, son. They just took out our suppression field so we can crack our fetch lands. And they had nothing to show for it.
Hope they play something interesting, push it, or exile it, then
They have
play
no
out.
cards in hand. They're trying to figure out how to attack in with Ink Moth, but I have Fatal Push and 2 paths in hand. Like, I don't think opponent realized that they just let me crack both my lands and kill their creature. Because this is still going to cost mana to tutor up something else, so they just... I don't know, that doesn't seem like great sequencing. And because we haven't been able to do it yet, I believe we're on Sigil this time. Or are we on Suppression Field? We can be Dream Smashers next turn. If you're talking, you might be muted. So, Sigil, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 angel. We're going to put out the suppression field that they just took away so that they could activate their lands, and get a 4/4 angel and make it so that they can't do anything again. So they can get in for 1 until we put this out again. And we are doing prison things.
This is what happens when you go to prison. It's not good.
Some random dude named Zur with a red cape attacks in and makes your sell an island? I don't know.
No, that's exactly right.
One interaction I'm going to point out here. Zur puts the enchantment into play, and Sigil requires you to cast the enchantment, so these two actually don't trigger each other. But we have enough cheap enchantments, like looking at our deck, pretty much the entire 2 and 3 drop section are enchantments. So we can trigger it more often than not, but it is something to take note of. So we are currently 1-1. Lost to Valakut, beat Hardened Scales Affinity.
I'm actually going to go cook some steak. I'm going to go on mute, but I'll be back eventually.
All right, sounds good.
In like, I don't know, 15, 20. But yeah. You guys, you might be done with the stream by then, but we'll see. So.
We're playing Prison. We'll probably be in game 1.
Sounds good to me, man. All right, I'll be back. Yep.
All right, I'm actually going to go on mute for myself for about 30 seconds as well.
Sounds good.
Apologize for that. Had to take care of something. So, opponent decided to join. So let's see what they're on. Alright, so despite being a blue deck, we don't actually have any ways to draw additional cards or filter our draws. We have a fetch land that we can use to get our black mana and a suppression field as well as drops for turn. So good enough for me. We don't have any of our hosers, but we're also playing against an unknown enemy opponent. Suppression field actually increases the cost of Street Wraith, which is pretty funny for this matchup. Let's see if they're on Death Shadow or one of the new Electro Dominance Living In builds. Alright, so they're on Living End of some variety. Again, want to lead on the Flooded Strand because Suppression Field is going to increase the cost. I actually think this increases the cost of all the cycling abilities. Because it's just an activated ability. Activated abilities have a colon in the name. Which you can't tell from cycling, but that's showing you the shorthand. An opponent is coming out strong. Alright, looks like another variant of Mono Red Living End. Hollow One Living End. Same thing. So Hollow One here means that they either don't have the tools for it or they're just committing to board before they start switching gears again. Gonna go get our basic here. Blood Moon is not outside of the realm of possibility, but this does not feel like a great matchup unless we happen to get our sideboard hate. And even if we do, they typically run Ingot Chewer. Ingot Chewer will destroy target artifact with Evoke, so they just get destroyed, it goes to the graveyard, they get a Living End and bring it back. Alright, and Fatal Push of note cannot hit Hollow One. So, how much damage do they have in their graveyard? They have 4, 8, 16. We're dead if they Electro Dominance here. So, gonna run out the island. I'd rather they keep the Hollow One, but if they have anything, if they have Electro Dominance Living End, we're dead. So, just gonna run out Thassa. Gonna try to scry into a Ghostly Prison. Yep, it would have been more correct to hold up Fatal Push, but them's the beats. They just had their nut draw, so... Alright. Leyline, definitely coming in. Wrath of God, likely coming in. They can do it instant speed, which makes it a lot harder for board clears to interact with them. I believe Ingot Chewer only hits... Yeah, they only hit artifacts, so the Ensnaring Bridges lose some value there. Opponent also doesn't know that we have Ensnaring Bridges, so they could potentially... Mono Red doesn't have a way to interact with enchantments. It would have to be an ETB creature, which I'm just going to quickly double check that Living End doesn't have one. They could potentially have something like Rexage, but they have no way to discard it, so... The general concept for their deck is have creatures that discard or sacrifice themselves. Spirit Guide gives them ramp. Whenever they cycle, they get benefits, but they're eventually going to cast this card Living End. Each player removes all creature cards in his or her graveyard from the game, then sacrifices all creatures they control. Wordy way of saying the graveyard becomes play and play becomes graveyard. Looks like they run a couple of Beast Withins as non-conditional answers in the generic build, but we're playing against Mono Red. As I mentioned, Ingot Chewer comes in, Shriek Maw's creature removal, Ricochet Trap for counter spells, Leylines for any graveyard strategies, some way to gain life. None of this seems too impactful in Mono Red, and Mono Red shouldn't have a way to interact with us. So Leyline's going to be our big hoser here. I think Sigil can come out. We just need to lock them down, and then we'll win. This combo can win us the game, although it's probably not going to do anything by the time we can get to it. If we lock down and we can be attacking with Zerg, we've already won. Nevermore is fantastic for Electro Dominance and or Living End. Copy Enchantment, again, won't do anything impactful unless we already have something there. And I'm conflicted on Greater Oromancy. I don't believe they have anything. I think I'd rather leave it in just to be safe. So, Leyline of Sanctity can come out, which means we probably keep Copy Enchantment. Maybe Suppression Field. I actually like that more for the cycling costs. Basically mulliganing for that, and we found it. Suppression Field should reduce the cost, so they'll only get a cycle once. I'd love another land, but that means I can't crack this one yet. So you're going to have to draw, then fetch twice. I've seen a lot of people running this list. It seems like it's fairly budget. Electro Dominance Living End is a fantastic combo, and I've been playing with it myself. Alright, so opponent's actually given up on the Living End plan, which means they're on Draft Shaft, so they're not going to be doing anything overly productive this game. As they're slowly running out their 5-6 mana cyclers, we're just going to be answering them and or not caring because they can't attack. Yep, Hollow One's fine. We'll take Beats for a turn. Wow, 3 Street Wraiths. Luckily only one Hollow One. And again, I'm not putting Blood Moon out of the realm of possibility. I'm definitely getting the 2 colors I care about most here, because we're not going to be able to fetch very well. If we get Blood Mooned here, it might actually be bad. This Hollow One will go unchecked until we find a path, or a journey, or something. Ooh, that was a mistake. I forgot about the suppression field already. We had to hit this Hollow One. We actually might lose because of that mistake. I don't know what my opponent is doing. Okay, there's a Cathartic Reunion. So they did have the combo, and they've just given up on it. They're growing the Flame Blade. So for those of you that may not have... I feel like I've explained this deck every single time I've queued up for a league. But what they're doing is they're running a bunch of ways to discard with Street Wraith and the Cycling Creatures and Cathartic Reunion. You can discard 2 cards and then draw 3. This synergizes really well with Flameblade Adept that grows whenever it has whenever you discard for the turn. It's got Menace, so it usually gets in damage, and Hollow One gets its cost reduced. If you discard 2 cards, it costs 1. If you discard 3, it's free. And then they eventually end up getting this Electro Dominance. It's an instant speed. You can pay red, and honestly the damage is nice, but it doesn't really matter. What it does do is it allows you to cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its cost. Ooh, yeah, this is bad. And that card is Living End, and that's the card that Graveyard to play to Graveyard. So we shut off their Graveyard, and it's making it so that they have to go about this the hard way. I didn't even use the Flooded Strand. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this game. Alright, well, gonna put them to the test with the Flameblade Adept. If they can discard 4 cards, we lose. Need to find a solid answer before then. Yeah, the punt on turn 3 cost us 4 life. Otherwise, this would be very far out of range for them. Electro Dominance does have a weird amount of reach here. It's like they can ping us for 1 right now. If they end up getting a lot of lands, they actually might be able to kill us through... Yep, and then this is the new tech out of the deck. It's the Red Praetor. It gives your creatures haste and your opponent's creatures enter tapped. It's essentially the version of Leyline that's budget, because when you living end, all the creatures in your graveyard come to play. Yours will have haste and will be able to attack into creatures that come in tapped. Do you have Bolt? Another hollow one. Alright, well, that's unfortunate. That was completely a play mistake on my part to lose that. So, lost to being stupid, and to Valakut, ended up beating Hardened Scales. One of the nice things about having so many random pieces of tech in a toolbox deck is you do have a lot of those mainboard answers that are very hard for them to answer, like Solemnity. Alright. Phyrexian Unlife, funny enough, is going to gain us 3 life here. We have no blue mana. Our only piece of interaction is Banishing Light. I'm going to mulligan that. It just doesn't feel safe enough. This hand is not the best, but it ends up getting us a Seal Away and a Path to Exile. And we're playing against Tron. So a lot of the cards we were just banking on there aren't very good. Our best cards in this matchup are going to be the Spreading Seas, and that's about it. They're just going to go over our head. We're going to dirtle a little too much. That Nevermore is kind of nice, though. They're on Blue Tron, which means we can end up naming... probably Cyclonic Rift is our biggest concern out of them. Bluetron plays a somewhat fairer game than Greentron does. Greentron just ramps out the biggest threats in Modern and tries to back them up, while Blue plays Counter Magic and basically tries to control the board a little bit and then just end up casting Mindslaver and Mindslaver locking your opponent. So Mindslaver is 6 mana, you pay 4, sacrifice it, you control target player during the next player's turn. And they played Buried Ruin, one of the lands that they can go tutor to put an artifact on top of their deck. So they will Mindslaver you, and then put Mindslaver on top of the deck, take your turn, and then just run it back, and then you never get a turn again. Alright, so we are definitely going to be getting countered here. It's kind of nice that we have 2 Zers for that reason. But this matchup just feels so bad. So they're going to condescend us, they're going to counter the spell and then scry 2. Or just remand. Return it to its owner's hand and draw a card. Thirst for Knowledge, draw 3 cards unless you discard an artifact. It helps them filter out their expedition maps. They can also discard Wormcoil Engine, EE, Walking Ballista, any of the cards that they feel won't make the cut. And they didn't replay blue. The 7 mana is probably a Wormcoil. Nope, that's the Mindslaver. Alright, so that's going to go get the Buried Ruins, so I'm going to take this turn to Nevermore. This is clearly how they intend to win this game, so I'm just going to make it so that they can only control us once. None of our cards are super impactful to the board anyway. So that means they have to go get... they can EE for 3. That's going to go get Wormcoil. Or Sundering Titan. Even worse for us. Sundering Titan will destroy a land of each basic type when it enters and leaves. So that's... I guess our Drowned Catacomb is safe. But that's going to be the island, that's going to be the plains, it's going to be the swamp, so we'll be left with 2 mana. What they're probably going to do here is play Zur and Path it. Or not. Okay, so they just care about protecting their Sundering Titan. And then typically when you control an opponent, it's correct to tap their mana because I get control back here. There's nothing I can do, but it means that I am tapped out. Then I'll have 2 mana, which means I want Ensnaring Bridge here. Yep, goodbye lands. Easy enough for me. So now they have to destroy one of their islands as well. Oh, they have Remand. Yep, that's bad. I forgot that they were a blue opponent with 4 cards in hand. I should have known better than that. Alright, so they're going for Talaria West. Talaria West will allow them to pay 3 mana and go tutor something that costs 0. That's probably going to be Walking Ballista here. Because they can just dump a lot of mana into Walking Ballista and ping our face. Oh, they got Chalice. Let's try to make it so that we can't replay the path. Luckily our deck doesn't care that much. Alright, Island is fine. We'll see if they have another Remand or Condescend. Nothing yet. They also run Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift will return target non-land permanent for blue and a 1. Repeal on Nevermore. So there's the Academy Ruins lock, and we are dead. Alright, so Leyline is not a good enough reason. Stony Silence is fantastic. Suppression Field, they get enough mana, it's probably going to slow us down more than the opponent. Ixalan's Binding is probably just another piece of removal we can use because we're probably going to be cutting more than we want to. Greater Auramancy does stop the Cyclonic Rift I just pulled up. It targets everything. And so it'd bounce Auramancy and everything else would fizzle. The problem is EE is going to blow up a lot of our deck. They can easily get it to at least 2 off the blue and the black. A lot of lists have cards that can filter for mana or just do generic things. They also run expedition maps so they can go grab more colors if they need to, but EE will be able to blow up everything in this column pretty freaking easily. So again, I think Suppression Field isn't the best here. Leyline can stop Mindslaver, but I don't think that's great enough. Maybe the 2 main board might be worth sticking around. I guess Solemnity can stop the counters on EE. Affection and Unlife doesn't do much, though. When they win, they can win with a lot of stuff, so this combo probably just comes out. Fatal Push is definitely worse than anything else. They're not going to pressure us very quickly, but we're just not going to be able to close the game out. So it might just be this. I don't think any of their weird counter spells that cost more mana actually are going to be stopped by Leyline. I don't know. This feels a little bit more correct. We could have any number of dampening spheres in the sideboard. We could have targeted hate for them. It just doesn't feel like it does enough. Yeah, this hand has a Leyline and 1 mana. This does even less. This might be one that we just have to chalk up to being a horrible, horrible matchup. Sphere can go to bottom. If we jam Stony Silence and get Greater Auramancy out, we might have a shot. Alright, well that's at least the beginnings of something successful. Our life total doesn't matter much here, so I'm just going to jam it. Stony Silence stops the Expedition map, which means they have to pop Cyclonic Rift this turn to return it to hand, and that's not going to do anything impactful. Stony Silence is protected for a turn, then Greater Auramancy is going to protect it so they can't do any of our enchantments. And we keep whiffing on lands. So EE for 2 is their best out here, but they have no colored mana. They had natural Tron. Alright, so you always go for the tower because it taps for the most. They always have a redundant tower, but that's just the logic when playing against Tron. This is also mana fixing them, which is unfortunate, but and more paths. We want more lands deck, please and thank you. Yep, they always have more towers. But this is going to start growing. Assuming they don't have a counterspell, which they have 1,000,000 mana and nothing to do with it, so yeah, they have counterspells. It's on opponent to find Wormcoil or Sundering Titan, though. Yep, that's going to do it. So they went for Walking Ballista. That seems awkward. They won't be able to activate it. Alright, well, we're shipping it back and holding up 2 Path to Exiles. Go, little deck, go. Discarding Dismember and a Tron land. Yep, Walkie B for 4. We're going to path it. And just because we have nothing else to do, we're going to path the Trinket Mage too. Opponents made it pretty clear they don't have much action. Alright, so they discarded a Power Plant, which means I'm going after Power Plant. It's the most represented card that I've seen, so they're going to have to draw 2. 1 of 2. Alright, there's a remand. Must not have cared about their creatures. And then if they had Sundering Titan in hand, that's just game. Yep, you get a remand again. We have fallen very far behind. The mold of 5 didn't help much. Alright, do you have a hard counter yet? Because I am a fan of running it back. Alright, that Teferi is super awkward. If we get to 5 mana, I'm happy, but very awkward at the current moment. Okay, that's not how that works. So, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. You may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, oh, I guess it replaces target with each. Alright, well, I'm going to F6 and see what happens, because I'm pretty sure opponent just has us locked down here. Overload, I thought, said, yeah, each should target each. Guess that's O-ring? Talaria West to go get, I guess, a land? Most of the time they use it to get this Academy runes for their Mindslaver lock, or they get it for Walking Ballista if they get caught. Oh, yeah, Chels for 2. I actually don't think that that's how that was supposed to go down. I do think that was a bug, because how's Wrath of God worded? Destroy all creatures. It doesn't say destroy each creature. Yeah, so I'm pretty positive that each targets each, and they had Shroud, so they shouldn't have been able to be targeted. Oh well, what can you do? We have a single land. I don't like keeping that. We're a prison deck. We need to make our land drops. I kind of like the Leyline there, but it's not enough to keep it. And super awkward, but that's our hand. And we are playing against probably Ponza? Okay, blue means probably Eternal Command. Oh no, this is the Vanifear deck. Nope, turbo turns. Alright, so what this deck is trying to do is it's trying to get its ramp on, and when they finally get enough mana, they're just going to start chaining together, taking extra turn spells, until they get Jace. Big Jace, not Baby Jace. And Big Jace is going to try to Fate Seal us to death, or they're going to try to attack for lethal with a Snapcaster Mage that's recasting their taking extra turn spells. Yep, this is going to go south very quickly. And, yeah. We might be making angels in 4 turns if you don't start attacking. Funny enough, if we had kept the white Leyline on top of our deck on our scry, we actually probably would have easily won this. Yep. I forgot about Cryptic. They would have just bounced the ley line. Fertile Ground just taps for additional mana. So they have 12 mana at end step because of Wilderness Reclamation. They have another Cryptic. Oh, new Baby Jace. So that must mean their hand isn't very stacked. Alright, well, little does opponent know that we are not going to allow them to attack us until they find another Cryptic command. Yep, Cryptic draw. We'll put out the bridge. It doesn't make much of a difference. When they cast 2 extra turn spells back to back is when we will start conceding. They can also force us to draw with Jace, so the Ensnaring Bridge doesn't mean much. Snapcaster means they can just bounce it anyway if it is a problem. There's Big J, so they can start brainstorming. They're going to see 5 cards a turn. So the dirtily blue decks are definitely going over our head here. Mono Blue Turns and Mono Blue Tron are not overly popular decks. Mono Blue Tron does see a moderate amount of play, and most people actually know about turns. I keep forgetting to right-click on that before I go to yes. Alright, so they still can't Nexus, but they have... Oh, they do have Nexus. Alright. So, just looking for one more turn spell, then we're going to scoop it up. Yep, I don't want to sit through that. Alright, as far as what we can do, Ixalan's Binding can take a walker off the field. They clearly cared about our suppression field. The Wraths are horrible. The ley lines mean that Jace can't target us. Pushes are bad. Pushes are better than Paths, though, because they can kill Snappy without giving a land. And that just might be it. This feels like such a bad matchup, though. Leyline isn't enough. Suppression field and Zur might be. They have to be able to answer Zur, otherwise we can take off their Utopia Sprawls and just tutor up more suppression fields. We can O-ring their Wilderness Reclamation. Currently 0-1 versus Mono Blue Turns, and 1-3 beating Hardened Affinity, losing to Valakut, Mono Blue Tron, and Mono Red Living End. Alright, opponent. Clearly you like taking turns. Would you like to take yours anytime soon? Because we're going to be in for a slow match. I could have made you play that out, but that just felt mean. There we go. Do not need Unlife. Alright, not on a turn 1 play, so they're going to be on a little bit of a slower start here. I'm going to be on suppression field, which means that I have to fetch now, and I don't really care about colors. So, yeah, I guess just an island. And they're on search, so that's going to be a really good way for them to get their engine rolling later. In the meantime, we'll be able to start making angels. We're going to run out Zur. That has to be answered, and then we can tuck whatever our problem is with Teferi. Alright, so opponent left mana up. It's probably just to crack their Misty, but it is possible they have like a Logic Knot. I don't believe it's correct to Banishing Light here. I believe that the actual value that Zur is going to give if he sticks is significantly higher. And there he is. They are not running white, so they don't really have a solid answer to Zur unless they counter him. I'm actually going to make sure to hit the Luminarch Ascension this time. Alright, for once, this entire time, always yes, always yield. And they're immediately on Cryptic. Turn draw, seems right. Alright, I would have loved to have stick to Fairy there. They do way too much with their mana, so Banishing Light's going to hit this Wilderness Reclamation. Mono Blue turns was pretty bad deck. This Wilderness Reclamation is making it so that it's actually possible. Seth was playing a Sultai build that I played and it felt awkward to play against. Like, it just kind of dirtled and then eventually won at the end. But if they're under any kind of clock, it doesn't really do anything. Alright, so I believe Teferi is actually our best call here. And I think I have to tuck with him. I'm not very happy about that. Oh, never mind. I can't do anything because of suppression field. I'm good at this game. So far, the only turn spell we've even seen out of them is Nexus of Fate. If that's the case, Nevermore is actually going to do a lot of work here. Alright, so we have enough mana. I'm going to tuck Jace. And run out Zur and see if we can go the distance. If they flip his Kanta, I'm definitely going to Spreading Seize it. They have Haza Pollen in their deck. Clearly they did not know what we were doing. I guess they did see the Luminarch Ascension. I assume they could gather from that we could put some pressure on at some point. His Gaunt is going to cost 6. Alright, what does this mean? I have 4 mana. I can activate Teferi and play Zur. I might just be on Banishing Jace the Mind Sculptor. First things first, though, let's actually draw. Bridge doesn't do anything I care about, so copy enchantment. Take Banishing Light. Steal Jace. Teferi felt like a decent finisher for this deck. The fact that our deck is sorcery speed for the most part, though, makes that kind of painful. I can't even activate Luminarch Ascension here with the extra mana I untap, so... Alright. Next turn's probably going to be Nevermore, assuming we get another turn. I don't know. I'd be really tempted to name Cryptic Command. Alright, let's see if you got us. It may have been greedy to go after Jace there, but... Why are they running Thought Scour? This list feels so loose. Like, if I had been running Surgical Extractions on Cryptic Command, they never would have gotten anywhere. If we had any kind of a clock, they would have been dead by turn 5 easily. I don't believe they have another turn, so... they're going to cast it here. Yep, there's the Nexus of Fate. At this point, I'm kind of just curious to see what they're actually trying to win with. They haven't shown us anything productive yet, so... We've seen Fog. We've seen Bad Fog. They probably just get to a point they mill their deck out and try to win with Jace the Mind Sculptor, but... Alright, so they're back to seeing like 7 cards a turn. That's fun. Should have ran out Nevermore on the Nexus of Fate. That was definitely a play mistake. This deck should have known going in. It was just fun enchantments. Toolbox, Zur. Toolbox in Modern is terrible. Prison in Modern is kind of meh. We kind of talked about that in the Sun and Moon list, how like Chalice isn't in a great spot, and Snaring Bridge is in a mediocre spot. Like, blue decks have Cryptic Command, red decks have a Braid. There's just so much artifact hate, and most people are packing it because of the Hardened Scales list. We ended up having 2 Stony Silences and a Solemnity, and that was enough to lock them out. Welcome back, DrunkMagic. I was doing a wrap-up, but I wasn't talking in Discord.
Yeah. I had a lot of steak.
Delicious. So it was basically saying how Prison isn't in the best spot, Toolbox is in the best spot. If you want to run Toolbox, you need to be on the Vanifer pod list. It's Splinter Twin, it's 4 colors, it's greedy, but you get to play with what you want to. There's a lot of tools in it. The tutor actually wins the game as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm going to hit one of your Tron lands. Our matchups tonight, we ended up going 1-4. We beat Hardened Scales Affinity, lost to Mono Red Living End, Mono Blue Tron, Blue Green Turbo Turns. The Mono Red Living End was actually just play mistakes on my part. I put out a fetch land forgetting I had Suppression Field out. Our deck is not super synergistic on its own. The idea is you go get enchantments that do a lot, and because I wasn't running synergy and not in the headspace for it, ended up basically punting that game away. We could also use something like Rule of Law in this list somewhere. Like that would have definitely wrecked Living In beyond belief. We're very dependent on seeing our sideboard cards, and Zur being 4 mana and requiring an extra turn before tutoring is just way too slow for Modern. The blue decks went well over our heads. We dealt with the creatures all right. Like, creature matchups is where this deck shines. It ends up having 3 board clears, 6 pieces of 1 mana interaction, 3 ensnaring bridges, a ghostly prison, a sphere of safety, and creates 4/4 blockers. Creature decks absolutely hate us, and the one that we played we wrecked. So, I don't know, it did some fun things. Definitely needs Rule of Law, probably needs like 3 of them, 1 of the main board, 2 inside, maybe even 3 inside, just because of how bad the spell matchups are. DrunkMagic, do you have anything to add? I know you're only here for like the first part of it.
Yeah. Well, the second part of it must have gone pretty quick, or it was all the martinis, but something like that.
We're about 2 hours in. I can't remember when you left, but we ended up playing some very slow, like, big blue decks. So we played against Turns, that is running the Wilderness Reclamation and Nexus of Fate, and they didn't even really have a win condition. It just wasn't worth sticking around for because they started going off. They could deterministically get to Nexus of Fate. Like, I as you know, I'm not a fan of Arena, and it might just be Nexus of Fate. Like, I really hate that card. They had 1 copy of Nexus of Fate, and if I would have named it with Nevermore, it probably would have been an easy win, but just the concept of, like, here, I'm going to go play with myself, don't look at me, I'm indecent, it doesn't really... I mean, we're playing Prison, so I can't speak too much to it, but it's a little painful to be on the other side while they're just going off, especially in Arena when they don't have a chess clock and it's just your clock and their clock counting down. I don't know. But Mono Blue Tron was a beating. Yeah, Mono Blue Tron just had a ton of mana. Cyclonic Rift, you might actually be able to weigh in on this a little bit. So, Cyclonic Rift, I'm trying to pull it up.
Return all permanents to the hand. I got you.
No, like, I don't believe it works this way. And I don't like that if I Google a card, it doesn't go to Scryfall.
We're still on the overview of the draft deck.
Yeah, I was just switching it back. I finally got there. So, Cyclonic Rift. 1 in a blue, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. With Overload, it says replace target with each. So, I was under the impression, and I've had rulings actually fared this direction, that each still targets, because it doesn't say all. So what ended up happening was I had, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Greater Oromancy. Other enchantments you control have Shroud. I had 2 of these out. So with Cyclonic Rift, I would assume that my enchantments can't be bounced because they all have Shroud. The
No,
wording...
I think it would be everything, actually.
You do?
Yeah. In that case, Cyclonic Rift's a stupid card. There's a reason it's $16.
It's $16? Oh, I was giving those away.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, on Wrath of God, it says destroy all creature, not destroy each creatures. Like, whereas, like, the wording on Overload is supposed to be every target that you don't control is what gets inferred from the Overload. I'm sure if anybody watches this, they're going to comment why it's wrong, but they ended up bouncing all of my enchantments, and we had Stony Silence out, 2 of each of the Shroud enchantments. We had 2... Spreading Seas on their Tron lands. Like, they just bounced everything to hand, made us discard to hand size, and then cleaned house. We got stuck on 2 mana. I don't believe that that's how that's supposed to work, but whatever.
The difficulties.
So I already did pretty big wrap up here. This deck has a lot of non-synergies to it. It's not even budget. We're not on the Form of the Dragon build, which we needed some strong finishers, especially early finishers. We didn't ever really hit Devotion to get up to Enduring Ideal with Nykthos. That's kind of how the first strategy goes off, and that's why I've actually cut it from trying to play this on my own. It just... The deck is interesting. Starfield of Nyx might be a better out. The regular version of the deck also runs Ghostly Prisons, where we have Ensnaring Bridges. Ensnaring Bridge is a better hard stop, so that's why I ended up including it. It is more expensive, but it does actually stop combat, as we saw in a lot of the early matches. But the blue spell decks just wrecked us, and that's part of Modern. You can't metagame too hard. If your local shop is playing a lot of creature decks, this will actually do some work. You can get by without buying a lot of the fetch lands and shock lands, and most of the deck doesn't cost a whole lot except for the Ensnaring Bridge. And as we mentioned in Sun and Moon, Ensnaring Bridge isn't really going anywhere. It's in Tezzeret, it's in Sun and Moon, it's in Big Red. It's basically in any deck that's trying to attack on that axis, and you do become the prison player. So other than that, though, on your side of the table, it's fun. And especially if you're trying to spike a tournament, like probably free win red, then Sun and Moon, then Tezzeret is probably this tier list for trying to win a tournament. But this is fun, and it's okay to mix it up every once in a while. Any other closing remarks, DrunkMagic?
Nah, I'll probably head over to Arena and go live for a couple minutes and play a silly round, but that's about it.
Would you like me to hop over with you? I'll go ahead and wrap it up here and pop in your game.
Yeah, sure. I'll stay over here.
Do you have the link for Twitch, for your Twitch chat, or do I need to go find that?
Yeah, I can find it.
Well, I'm getting... Oh, I didn't hit record again. Lovely. All right, so I'm going to have to go download that from Twitch. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good one.